The policies being made in this country are not supportive of young people in the next generation. It's a disgrace. It's disgusting. If you've ever studied any level of macroeconomics, this is an absolute fact. It's physics. It's mathematical. When rates go up, and by rates I mean the interest rate at the Reserve Bank, when it goes up, the value of assets falls. Because I was listening to a survival expert recently, I forget what show it was on YouTube, and they actually had this question. They said, what are the three most important human needs in nature? Like, what are the three things that if you don't get, you die? I'm like, oh, that's easy to answer that question. They're like, what is it? I'm like, water. If you don't go for water for 3 days, you die. You learn this when you're in school at grade 4 flipping geography. You learn whatever it is you're in, what class. You learn pretty fast, outdoor education, that if you don't have water in 3 days, you die, right? We all know this. Then, second is food. If you don't get food for 3 weeks, you die. Now, that's how I grew up and that's what I learned, but it's wrong. The one basic human need, if you're in nature and you need to survive and you don't get it first, you die. And it is shelter. Shock. I was like, what? How? Because of things like exposure. Hypothermia, right, can cook you. Well, it doesn't cook you, hypothermia. It does the opposite. Hypothermia can freeze you to death. Right? And if you don't get shelter, you're exposed to the elements. If you go without shelter for 3 days, the impact to your body is irreparable. It can really kill you. So think about that. We're actually making shelter the number one human need. We're making it unaffordable for our citizens. I've never said this before, but it's a flipping disgrace. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. We should be, the fact that there's not many, we just take it on the chin, right? It's not, and if you're one of these people who's have taken this, have risen or have floated up on this high tide of property prices, and you're all high and mighty, well, that's great for you. But what about your children and grandchildren? Like, I think about my niece and nephew, like, what are they going to do? You think, oh, we'll bugger them. We've got wealth in our family. Well, that's a very narcissistic, arrogant approach to take. Our senior generation, or the policies being made in this country, are not supportive of young people in the next generation. It's a disgrace. It's disgusting. Politicians should be limited to one house. They shouldn't be incentivized to buy multiple houses because they can make policy that pumps property prices. They can immigrate this country away. They're doing it right now. Okay, we'll come to that in a second. So the reason why that's happening, the reason why this happened is two reasons why property prices are way outperforming wages. It's because of this. Firstly, interest rates in the 70s were at about 17% because they had to break inflation, right? Paul Volcker came out. He was the chair of the Federal Reserve in America. And the world was kind of sitting at high interest rates of 17%. And what he had to do was he had to lift rates up to get inflation back down. And he lifted rates to 17%. And when he did that, what happened was when you raise interest, this is an absolute economic policy. If you've ever studied any level of macroeconomics, this is an absolute fact. It's physics. It's mathematical, which means it's not up for dispute. But when rates go up, and by rates I mean the interest rate at the Reserve Bank, when it goes up, the value of assets falls because the value of the future cash flow is discounted back at a discount rate. It's called the time value of money. When you discount those future cash flows back to a net present value today, the net present value formula, which is a mathematical formula you learn in any finance education, right? When you discount them back at a higher interest rate, the current value of the property or the asset, whatever it is, shares, property, bonds, is less today. Let me just rephrase that for you so you understand. When you have a high interest rate and you discount the future cash flows back from the future to today's value using a high interest rate, it means the asset is a lower value. So that's why in 1990, when rates were at 17%, property prices were very low compared to your wage. In fact, 2 to 3 times annual wages. So if you were making 50 grand back then, a property was about 100,000 to 150,000. Very affordable. Everyone was buying. It was easy to pay it off. No dramas. Okay? That's fine. That's actually 3 to 4 times earnings is a nice fair value. And in America right now, it's about 4.5, which is very reasonable. Okay? In Australia, it's 13 times earnings. And in Japan in the 90s, before the great big property bubble back then for Japan, it was at 18 times earnings. So we're not too far off. Anyway, so back in 1990, when rates were all-time highs, property prices were all-time lows. But guess what happened in the last 30 years? Yes, you guessed it. Rates went from 17% to 1%, 1.25%, from 17 to 1. So what happens when you drop rates? It does this. It does this. So when you drop rates, you lift asset prices. That's because the future cash flows are discounted back at a lower rate, which means the asset value is worth more. So you haven't been in a property boom. You've been in a rate reduction cycle of 30 years. And you didn't create that. You're not a genius. You're not that smart. You just bought. It's the timing. Arguably, honestly, it's luck. You happen to be born in the 1960s. That is the ovarian lottery. You didn't plan that. You fluked it. And now you're like, I'm the flipping property investor. Oh, well, let's see what happens when interest rates go back up. They used to be at 7.5%, which is about roughly on average in the last 1,000 years what they've been at. It's only recently, because of COVID, that they really, and the GFC, that they really dropped them so drastically. It's truthfully, like it's only recent. In fact, interest rates got as low as they've ever been for 5,000 years in your lifetime. So think about it. What happens when rates go back up? Yes, the value of your real estate falls. Welcome to the party. You get it. What's holding it up and propping it up unnaturally is we're immigrating 600,000 people to this country every single year. The average over the last 10 years was about 200,000, so it's tripled. So of course you're going to have stress on the infrastructure and the housing of the country because you're not building enough houses to house them. And it's just, and it just doesn't need to happen. It's a policy that can be stopped immediately by government. But the reason why they're doing it is because they don't want to face a recession, because they don't want to get out of power. And they also, guess what? They own half a dozen houses themselves. It should be bloody banned, I tell you, for them to have houses because they're making policy to pump their own bloody equity up. It's an absolute, I'm disgusted. You can't tell. Disgusted. Thanks for listening to Money Grows on Trees. If you enjoyed the episode, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and subscribe to us on YouTube so you never miss an episode. And if you're serious about building wealth, make sure to check out the links in the show notes and follow me on all social media platforms at Lloyd James Ross for more. See you in the next episode.